Yo, so this is how I customize Mutant Mayhem Mikey. First, gotta take him apart. Well, I just take off his belt, really. And cover everything with a matte acrylic varnish. It's by Liquitex and it works on plastic as well as other things, so it's my base coat because I don't need to cover them all with a primer because the colors he's gonna be are close enough to the colors he already is. Anyway, raw sienna is the color I'm going to use for mostly the front of his shell. I got to paint his sides because they're green and they should be shell color. And then I'm getting deep in all the cracks and then just lightly over the top with the raw sienna on his front of his shell. And then the baby turtle is all green, so I put a base coat of the raw sienna on there. And then I get his back shell with the raw sienna as well. And then a second coat on the sides. That's going to get a few coats because it's such a dark green. Mikey's the darkest, but he has the lightest shell. So when I watched the movie, I paid a lot of attention to all the details in the turtles, and he's got like a kind of yellow in the cracks of his shell, so that's why I went with a base yellow on the back of his shell. And I'm going to dry brush now on the front of his shell and the side of his shell with the same daffodil yellow that I put on the back of his shell, but he's the last one. I did Leo and Raph and Donnie pretty much the same, and I'm going to do him kind of the same, but he has the difference in the shell, and since he is darker it's going to be less putting a wash, and I lightened him up with some of the daffodil yellow, just dry brushing on some of his muscles and a little bit on his face because he's already so dark. And now his weapons and barack, I kept them together when I put the clear coat because it's just easier to hold them and paint them with the clear coat, but then I took them all off and started painting them. The stuff that's going to be silver, I painted black, and now I have this color. It's raw sienna, daffodil yellow, cinnamon brown, white acrylic, and white acrylic primer that I used in the last couple videos when I did the other three turtles, but I use that on everywhere that's going to be wood, or just painted a wrap there on the orange part. I didn't know what I was going to do with that, or if it was wood or if it was going to be a wrap. And also on the canister I get the part that's going to be green, and these are little wraps on the ninja stars. And also he gets two coats of that on the back of the shell of the baby turtle because he had to come from green. Now I use the same color to just dry brush over all the top edges of his shell now to you see the yellow is staying in the cracks. I'm just putting a little bit of paint and spreading it out as much as I can, and it's just going to stay on the top and not get in the gaps. Now I have a bright cardinal red. I did all of their slices of pizza the same, so that's the sauce color. And then the other color that I used as my kind of base primer coat and color, I put a little bit on the front of his shell. Now I have daffodil yellow as the cheese on the pizza. His pizza is different. His has no crust. I guess he already ate it, but it looks like cleanly cut off, not like bites taken out. But then I put a little bit of black dry brushed on the pepperoni and a little bit of deep red, so a darker red for the pepperoni. It's not the same color as the sauce. And the cinnamon brown now I'm using to do the wood of the rack and the wood on his weapons. And yeah, do a couple coats and then a little bit of that dry brushing on the shell to make it even darker and make the lighter yellow in the lines pop out even more. Now I have silver, and I paint the canister because they all come with canisters. Donatello and Mikey, their canisters, well, all their stuff was orange, all their accessories, and Leo and Donnie were silver. But now I use a toothpick to just paint the straight line on those microphones and then dry brush on the top where it's the grid or like grill on it. Yeah. And also the chains on the weapons. I'm just dry brushing a little on these that were already silver on his nunchucks. That's how he came in the box. Now I have a hot saffron as my orange. It's the brightest orange I have, and it took a little bit to get it out of the container. That happens sometimes. So I paint the little wraps on his ninja stars and then also the wraps around his weapons rack. Yeah. And then this I decided was going to be orange wraps as well. Just like the nunchucks, they already have an orange wrap, so I didn't do much to them yet. Now I have an apple orchard. It's just a bright green, I guess like a green apple, but it's the color. I like it for the Ooze, and it's satin, so it's kind of glossy, so it looks good on the Ooze, I guess. I don't know. That's just a color I picked. And also lime green I used on the last, I don't even remember. Oh yeah, on like Leo's broken canister. And I think Mikey's canister has it broken one way, and Leo and Raph is broken the other way. But when I painted Leo's canister, I used a lime green because I couldn't find the apple orchard, so I also painted apple orchard over his. Now I have a hunter green that I mixed with water to get a bit of a green wash, and like I did for the other guys, but you won't see it as much on him because he's already such a dark green, but I get in all the little crevices and cracks on his skin just to add a little bit of depth to the color and to make it a little bit darker and him to match his brothers with the same kind of tones. Yeah. And now I move on to a black wash. So the wash I do is just acrylic paint, and it's like 1/3 paint, 2/3 water. And now I'm getting in the nunchucks and the wraps. All the wraps are gonna get the black wash just to get in all the details, and since it has water, it's just gonna get into the cracks and stay there more than on the edges, and a little bit on the nunchucks as well. But this I want to wipe some of it off because I don't want too much. I just want it in the little gaps and stuff to make the silver dry brushing pop out more. Now I'm back with the daffodil yellow once again, dry brushing on the top of his shell, and I'm going in for all the last details. I have a fine liner that I do in his mouth of the baby turtle, and then a sepia fine liner in the cracks on the bottom of the shell or the plastron or undershoot, and then a thicker fine liner to do the eyes of the baby turtle, and try to get it as circle as I can. Now I move on to the figure, and Mikey's getting a lot of like black, like drawing lines detail, and I'm just going over the natural lines that are already there, and especially because their pads in this version of the turtles are just more like wraps, so they have a lot of texture that I brought out even more with the black lines there. Now I had also went with the black marker, or making a black line on his teeth, and now I'm going with silver over that line, and I sharpened a toothpick to use like a paint marker for the silver so I could get his braces. And the belt clip had a little bit painted silver, but a little bit of the clip wasn't, so I added to that because, well, I had the silver out, why not? And I want to make his shell a little darker, so I dry brush with the raw sienna to make it a little darker and lighter in the cracks, similar, but I didn't go all the way yellow on the baby turtle. He grew into that. I don't know. And now I'm dry brushing some more of that hot saffron orange on the wraps because they got a little darker than I wanted with the black wash. So now I just pick up the edges with the bright orange, and it really pops out and gives a lot of different colors. Now I have a green fine liner, dark green fine liner. I'm going in all the little cracks and crevices around his skin to make them look a little darker and pop out more like I did on his brothers. And that's him from the back, and those are his weapons, and that's the pizza. They all match. That's kind of what I was going off, and that's him meeting his brothers because I already did them. I'll link to them, some of them in a bit, like right now. But until next time, remember, always keep your head up. Peace. Thanks for watching. Peace.